So YMS made a video about the Snyder Cut. Now, I heavily disagree with this video, but I just couldn't cover it for the longest time because I was afraid of being harassed by some of his fans. I'm not saying that all of them are toxic, of course, but considering that he has a huge following and he primarily focuses on making negative content, there are gonna be some very toxic fans. So please, let's all just be civil in the comment section. He then talks about why the Flash is annoying, which, fair enough, I wasn't really annoyed by him, but I can definitely see why other people were. He then starts nitpicking, like with the scene where Cyborg saved innocent civilians from a piece of falling rubble. Uh, YMS asks why can Flash do it? And fair enough, but ultimately that doesn't really matter. The events of the movie would be the exact same. It's just a superhero saving the same people. Which superhero does it doesn't really matter. He then attributes Flash being able to move a blade with his finger without being injured to electricity. He never really explains what any of that means, he never elaborates. He just sort of says it. Then he asks why the projectile that the parademons shot at him didn't just bounce off of him like the sword. Thing is, the projectile was most likely something like a laser bolt. Blaster bolt, sorry. Thing is, it most likely was not a physical object. And also, the sword did not bounce off of him. He pushed the sword. He didn't really. He did not even try to push the laser beam or bolt. And I do apologize for not being able to speak now. I have no idea what's wrong with me. But, anyways, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. It's a false equivalence, pretty much. Let's just move on to Wonder Woman because I really don't want to be here all day. He complains about the music that's used every time she's on screen. Personally, I did not mind this, but still, that's a creative choice. It might be something you disagree with, but it doesn't make the character herself annoying. He then says that the dialogue is bad without explaining why. He tries to place a few edits here to make it seem a bit more awkward, but that doesn't really help matters. Then he couldn't really think of a reason for why Superman is annoying. And he also couldn't think of anything for Aquaman. He then calls Steppenwolf pointy Thanos, which doesn't really make much sense seeing as Steppenwolf came first, but also it showcases the biggest problem with the video. He tries to make the character of Steppenwolf seem stupid by just misrepresenting him as pointy Thanos. He's just trying to make things look dumber than they actually are, be they plot elements or characters, and that's a really, really terrible argument tactic. The problem with these types of criticisms is that they're the ones you're not really supposed to be able to reply to, and they're just really lazy. Like, the only purpose you can derive from them is getting the last word in an argument, but getting the last word in an argument is pretty much meaningless if you haven't really made a good point. And in this review, good points have been few and far between. So this attempt at making things sound dumber than they actually are is just meaningless. Ultimately, my biggest problem with his review is that hundreds of thousands of people are just gonna take it as a fact without seeing any of the flaws in the review. Heck, they're not even gonna watch the movie, they're just gonna see the review and take everything in it as a fact. They've even admitted it in the comments, which is obviously a bad thing. Considering that YMS is considered a very credible critic with over 1 million subscribers. Needless to say, this review left a lot to be desired.